This investigation found a community that was deeply polarized, a community where deep distrust and hostility often characterized interactions between police and area residents, a community where local authorities consistently approached law enforcement not as a means for protecting public safety, but as a way to generate revenue, a community where both policing and municipal court practices were found to be disproportionately harmful to African American residents.
Ask anyone who has been a part of law enforcement and they will perhaps grudgingly admit there are problems, sometimes right to the core of the department itself. It's been talked about ad nauseum, portrayed in TV episodes and film, written about in far too many books to count. Yet with all that publicity, all that insight, there are still human beings at the core, many who do the right thing, others who pollute the entire concept and go off half-cocked. The fight to root out the bullet heads has taken on a new level of urgency after Ferguson. Our first guest, a former Assistant Chief of Police, now President and CEO of Metropolitan Protective Services in Maryland, Derrick Parks joins us. Derrick, it's a pleasure to have you on the show again.
Ed, it's always a pleasure to be back on your show.
Derrick, with all of the various charges here, everything the Department of Justice found, do we need to admit to ourselves that in America today, this is not rare, that it happens in many other places, many states, and there's a lot of people basically taking the system and using it for their own needs?
That is a very good assessment, Ed. I mean, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head when you just summed that whole piece up. It's not exclusive to Ferguson. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of smaller agencies who kind of use the police department as their own way of generating revenue.
Then how do these yahoos, and I use that term very frankly and easily here, get away with it? Why are they not found and punished?
Well, what you have to understand is a first part of the Justice Department report, they identified that most of these things were driven by revenue. And when you guys, when police officers are very excited about new equipment, new cars, new facilities, so there are some of the direct recipients of these things. So when you're also looking at town councils or mayor's office, they're coffers of field. So they have money and they have ways that they are able to keep their salaries going, keeps the lights on in City Hall.
Okay, then Derrick, but what I'm hearing here is boys with toys and greed.
Well, that is an assessment. I mean, with being a police officer, you hold a lot of authority and a lot of power. And unfortunately, it seems like Ferguson and the officials of Ferguson, this is the probably one of the worst cases I've ever seen, where it's a whole, not just the police department, but it's the whole, you got the municipal court systems, you have county government, and you have the police department, kind of like the enforcers of bringing all those monies to the storehouse, and unfortunately on the backs of black individuals and minorities.
I want to be fair here, and of course we need to be, because there are many members of law enforcement out there who do not believe in this. They do their job every day. They put their lives on the line, and then you have these people out here who are basically using the system and abusing it. The biggest question people want to know then is, how do we root out the bad guys here, Derrick? Why have we still not gotten to a point where we can hold them accountable for such heinous action?
Well, I don't know about all the bad guys in particular, but if we just focus on Ferguson, you got to understand, this is something that's indoctrinated. This doesn't just stop at the office of the police department. This goes all the way up to city council, all the way up to judges and clerks. This kind of behavior was sanctioned and warranted by the whole atmosphere of everybody involved. So it's one of those things where I really don't know the answer. How they, I mean, I guess go with good elections and elect.
Well, but there's got to be more than that, though, Derrick, because you and I both know that elections happen, and still the bad guys and the bad girls, they're the ones that get by sometimes. Are we talking about federal oversight now?
Well, I don't want to go so far to say federal oversight, but it's kind of like, if you can imagine trying to turn around a big ship with one string or one rope, it's not going to stop overnight. It's something that I think if we put the right things in place, slowly we'll start to see changes. Changes won't happen overnight. You have a whole corrupt system, and now you have to think about a way to replace that system with one that is a lot more cohesive and a lot more respectful of their residents.
Derrick, you're going right where we're going next. I'm going to ask you to stand by because we're going to take a break, come back, and you talked about the system. And when we come back, we're going to hit on the system and the culture that is at play here, which could backfire against those honest cops seeking to serve. Let's not stop saying that over and over again. There are good cops out there. This does not indict every single law enforcement officer, but it must be taken seriously. We'll continue the investigation when MidPoint continues.